Nearly 25 years after a little girl was found dead in a New Hampshire state park, authorities finally gave her something she had never had before: her name. The announcement marked both an ending and a beginning, closing one of the most painful chapters in a decades-long investigation, while reopening a haunting question that still lingers today. Was there another victim still out there? The story traces back to a remote stretch of woodland known as Bear Brook State Park, located in Allenstown, New Hampshire. In 1985, a hunter moving through the park made a grim discovery that would quietly evolve into one of the most complex murder investigations in the state's history. Hidden among the trees, the hunter stumbled upon a rusted metal barrel. Inside were the remains of two people, a woman and a young girl believed to be about 9 years old. The discovery shocked investigators, but it was only the beginning. At the time, there were no missing persons reports that clearly matched the victims. No identification, no immediate leads, just questions, in a park that would keep its secrets for many more years. 15 years later, in 2000, those secrets deepened. An investigator searching the same area of Bear Brook State Park discovered another barrel, not far from the first. Inside were the remains of two more young girls, estimated to be around 2 and 3 years old. The realization was chilling. The 4 victims were connected, not just by location, but by circumstance. Authorities determined that all 4 victims had been killed sometime in the late 1970s or early 1980s. Their bodies had been deliberately placed in barrels and left in the park, concealed and forgotten, or so it seemed. As forensic technology improved, investigators began piecing together what little evidence they had. DNA testing eventually revealed that the 3 girls were related, though not all in the same way. This raised new questions about who they were, where they came from, and who could have done this. For decades, the case remained unsolved, known publicly as the Bear Brook murders. It became one of New Hampshire's most haunting cold cases. 4 victims, no confirmed identities, and no suspect brought to justice. That began to change in the late 2010s. By 2019, investigators had made a major breakthrough using DNA analysis and genetic genealogy, a technique that compares crime scene DNA to publicly available genealogical databases. Through this method, authorities were able to identify 3 of the 4 victims and determine something even more disturbing. The killer, they concluded, was the biological father of the children. His name was Terry Rasmussen. Rasmussen was not an unknown criminal. He had been convicted in California for killing another woman entirely unrelated to the Bear Brook case. He died in prison in 2010, never facing charges for the murders in New Hampshire. Even with this breakthrough, one mystery remained painfully unresolved. One of the victims, often referred to by investigators as the middle child, still had no name. For years, she was the missing piece. The girl between the oldest child found in 1985 and the 2 youngest discovered in 2000. Investigators knew she was Rasmussen's daughter. They knew how she died. They even knew roughly when she had lived, but they did not know who she was. That changed when the New Hampshire State Police's Cold Case Unit partnered with the DNA Doe Project, a nonprofit organization specializing in identifying unidentified victims using advanced genetic genealogy. Through extensive DNA testing and painstaking genealogical research, the team finally reached an answer. The child was identified as Ray Rasmussen. At a news conference announcing the identification, Senior Assistant Attorney General Benjamin Agati spoke emotionally about what the moment meant for everyone involved in the case. "Today, we're no longer frustrated," Agati said. "We can find ourselves for once, just today, fulfilled because we have that name, and it feels like a promise kept." But even as one promise was fulfilled, another question emerged. Authorities made it clear that the identification of Ray Rasmussen did not end the investigation. Instead, it renewed concerns that Terry Rasmussen may have had yet another victim. One still unidentified, still missing, and still waiting to be found. And with that possibility, the Bear Brook case, though closer to the truth than ever before, was far from over. Identifying Ray Rasmussen did not happen quickly or easily. Behind the announcement was one of the most extensive genealogical investigations ever tied to a cold case, stretching back more than 2 centuries and involving tens of thousands of names. Building on earlier work by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, investigators partnered with the DNA Doe Project to take the next step. Their task was daunting. Trace a family line backward and forward through history using nothing but fragments of DNA and public records. The result was a massive family tree containing roughly 25,000 names. Genealogists traced the DNA through generations, following descendants of a couple born in the 1780s. Century by century, branch by branch, the tree narrowed until investigators reached a woman who died in 2005. That woman had a daughter whose name stood out. Her name was Pepper Reed. As the investigation deepened, authorities uncovered a critical document, a 1976 birth certificate for Ray Rasmussen. The certificate listed her parents as Pepper Reed and Terry Rasmussen, confirming long-held suspicions that the unidentified child was Rasmussen's biological daughter. With that discovery, the picture became clearer and darker. According to authorities, Pepper Reed has not been seen since the late 1970s in California. There are no confirmed records of her after that period, no verified sightings, no documented explanation for her disappearance. Investigators now believe Reed is one of Rasmussen's likely victims, but she may not be the only one. At the same news conference where Ray Rasmussen's name was announced, authorities made a public appeal for help, stressing that while one identity had been restored, the case itself remained open. They urged anyone with information about Pepper Reed or Denise Bowden to come forward. Bowden, another woman connected to Rasmussen, vanished under troubling circumstances. According to investigators, Rasmussen was living with Denise Bowden and her infant daughter in New Hampshire when both disappeared in 1981. No clear explanation was ever given. By the mid-1980s, Bowden was gone, but her child was not. By 1985, Rasmussen had resurfaced in California, now living alone with a young girl. To neighbors, he presented himself as a grieving widower and devoted father, claiming tragedy had taken his wife. A neighbor later recalled Rasmussen's story, but behind that story was a far more disturbing reality. Eventually, the child was abandoned. She was later adopted, unaware for years of the truth surrounding her early life or the man who raised her. Investigators believe this pattern was not accidental. According to New Hampshire State Police Detective Sergeant Christopher Elphick, Rasmussen appeared to deliberately target vulnerable women he could isolate from their families and support systems. By alienating them from loved ones, authorities believe Rasmussen ensured that their disappearances would either go unreported or attract little immediate attention. He used people who wouldn't be missed right away, investigators said in essence, outlining a chilling strategy that allowed Rasmussen to move freely for years. To make matters more complex, Rasmussen rarely stayed in one place for long, and he rarely used his real name. Over the years, he adopted multiple aliases, including Bob Evans, Curtis Kimball, Gordon Jensen. Under these names, he lived across multiple states, including California, New Hampshire, Texas, Arizona, Oregon, and Virginia. Each move made it harder to track him, harder to connect the dots, and harder for authorities to see the full scope of his actions in real time. At the news conference, Detective Sergeant Elphick made it clear that the investigation was far from finished. "Our work is not done," he said. "If you have any information, no matter how small it may seem, we urge you to come forward. After more than 4 decades, your piece of the puzzle could be the one that finally brings justice." For investigators, identifying Ray Rasmussen was not just about closing a case. It was about reopening others that may have been forgotten, ignored, or never fully investigated. The evidence now suggests that Rasmussen's trail of destruction stretched far beyond Bear Brook State Park, and that some victims may still remain unidentified. And as authorities continue to piece together his movements, relationships, and aliases, one truth becomes increasingly clear. The name Ray Rasmussen may not be the last one recovered from this story. Although Terry Rasmussen was ultimately sent to prison, The full scope of what he may have done remains unknown. In 2001, Rasmussen was convicted for the killing of his girlfriend in California. Investigators discovered her partially dismembered body hidden in the basement of their home. A crime so brutal, it finally brought Rasmussen to justice. He was sentenced to prison, where he would later die in 2010. But even with that conviction, authorities say the case against Rasmussen was never complete. According to investigators, there are large gaps of time in Rasmussen's life where his whereabouts cannot be fully accounted for. Periods where records are missing, locations unconfirmed, movements unexplained, and those gaps are deeply troubling. It's highly unlikely that he stopped doing what he was doing, said New Hampshire State Police Detective Sergeant Christopher Elphick. Investigators believe Rasmussen's criminal behavior followed a pattern, one that did not simply end when he crossed state lines or assumed a new identity. His frequent moves across the country, his use of aliases, and his relationships with vulnerable women suggest a man who knew how to disappear and how to make others disappear with him. It's certainly possible we're going to make some more discoveries, Elphick said, not just about the whereabouts of Pepper Reed and Denise Bowden, but additional victims as well. That possibility has become one of the most unsettling aspects of the Bear Brook investigation. Authorities now believe Rasmussen's known victims may represent only a portion of those harmed. Each new revelation, each identified child, each uncovered alias raises the same question again and again. How many more are there? On the same day authorities announced the identification of Ray Rasmussen, the human cost of the investigation was brought into sharp focus. A victim witness specialist read a statement on behalf of Pepper Reed's family, giving them a voice in a case that had remained silent for decades. First and foremost, we want to express that Pepper is deeply loved and missed every single day, the statement read. For Reed's family, the confirmation that Pepper may be a victim did not bring closure. It brought a renewed sense of grief. Decades after her disappearance in the late 1970s, they're still searching for answers about what happened to her. The statement also acknowledged the loss of Ray Rasmussen, a child the family never had the chance to know. Though we did not have an opportunity to meet Ray, the family said, she is cherished just as much in our hearts. Those words underscored the tragedy at the center of the case. A child who lived briefly, died anonymously, and was only identified decades later through science and persistence. The family ended their message with a request. Our family kindly asks for privacy as we grieve. For investigators, the statement served as a reminder of why the case continues. Not just as a criminal investigation, but as a responsibility to the families left behind. While Rasmussen can no longer be prosecuted for additional crimes, authorities say identifying victims and uncovering the truth still matters. Each confirmed identity restores dignity. Each answered question provides at least some measure of peace. And with advances in DNA technology, investigators believe that answers once thought impossible may still be within reach. The Bear Brook murders have already reshaped how cold cases are solved, becoming one of the earliest and most prominent examples of genetic genealogy being used to identify both victims and perpetrators. Now, that same technology may hold the key to uncovering who Pepper Reed really was, what happened to Denise Bowden, and whether Terry Rasmussen's trail of violence extended even further than currently known. Authorities continue to ask the public for help, emphasizing that even small details, old memories, or forgotten encounters could prove critical. After more than 40 years, the case is no longer frozen in time. It is moving forward, slowly, carefully, and with the understanding that some truths, no matter how long buried, can still be brought to light. And for the victims whose names are still missing, the search continues. Subscribe for more crime stories unfolded.